Podcast. Improve Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Improve Podcast, the official podcast of Classic Studios. I am your host, Chase Collins, and thank you for joining me on this lovely Monday morning. For those of you who are new here or who might be new here, we are building a community of people who are creatives at heart but also have other stuff going on in their lives. And right now, those creative hobbies are just that, hobbies. Whether they're working professionals or full-time parents or students or anything in between, the thing we all have in common is that we have goals and creative hobbies and personal interests and projects that we're working on. And we are working to support each other and keep up with each other and make sure we're all, making progress towards our goals. That's sort of how I use this podcast, as sort of an accountability tool for myself, so that when I tell you about the projects that I'm working on, you can hold me accountable to them and they're out in the ether, and I'll feel more guilty if I just blow them off. So if that interests you, if you think you'd like to benefit from something like that, then keep on listening. For those of you who are using this podcast as an accountability tool, how are things going? How are your goals going? Do you have any goals for this week? Did you accomplish your goals from last week? Let me know, either in the comments or shoot me an email at theimprovepodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear about them or hear from you, just about anything, whatever you want to chit-chat about. It gets lonely in this podcast studio all by myself. This week on the podcast, it's going to be another solo episode. I got things I want to catch you up on. Should I run the intro music and then we just keep going? I don't know. What do you think? Let's find out. 5, 4, 3, 2... I'm just kidding, man. I am not running the intro music. I'm keeping it fresh. I'm keeping things moving. But I do have a lot of things that I want to talk to you about this week in all seriousness. First, I want to touch on where I've been and sort of the future of the Improved Podcast. I want to catch you up on what I've been doing, sort of both screenwriting-wise, creative-wise, and personal projects-wise, and then also what sort of research I've been doing, maybe. Is it called research? I don't know. It might just be called continuing education. Who knows? But yeah, so first thing I want to talk about is where I've been. So yeah, I missed last week's episode. My bad. I was traveling for work. Thought I would have enough time to get an episode out. I did not. I think I've said that at least twice in the last 3 months, where I was traveling. Thought I could get an episode out. Didn't get an episode out. So sorry about that. Won't happen again. Let's be honest, it probably will happen again, but I'm going to do my best to make sure it doesn't happen again. But we will. We're friends. Cut me some slack, you know what I mean? I'll cut you some slack if you don't achieve your goals one week. Cut me some slack if I don't get a podcast out this week. It happens. We got to be flexible with our priorities and our goals, right? I talked about that last week. Boom, still holds true to this day. Speaking of sort of adjusting priorities and stuff like that, things such as that, I do want to give you a heads up about this podcast. It sort of might be going through a little bit of a metamorphosis over the next couple of months. I am maybe going to be turning it into more of a solo podcast, at least through October, because there's just a lot going on. I don't really know if I have the bandwidth to schedule, prep, record, and edit episodes like that anymore with guests and everything. It's a lot harder to do those types of episodes, so I'm just going to be probably rocking solo. Hopefully that's cool with you. I really enjoy these solo episodes. They're a ton of fun for me. I just love rattling off the top of my head, and hopefully it's valuable for you. At the very least, it is a reminder to set those goals and accomplish those goals. In addition to that, I might also turn this into an every other week kind of podcast. I know that's not weekly, and it kind of goes against what this podcast is supposed to be, every week an accountability check-in. Hey, are you achieving your goals? But hey, every 2 weeks is still pretty good. And I feel like I can come back with more updates every 2 weeks as opposed to just small incremental updates every week. I don't know if I'm going to commit to this or not. So if there's a podcast next week and it's a solo episode, you'll know I've decided to just do every week because I can rock that. Or if I don't have one next week, that just means another one's coming the next week. I will commit to at least doing a podcast every 2 weeks for the time being. And this is just a short-term thing, maybe the next 3 months or less. So yeah, just a heads up. We'll see. If I start, all of my goals start falling apart and I don't accomplish anything once I switch to this every 2 weeks kind of schedule, then I'll jump it back to a once a week podcast, because then I'll know that this has been helpful for at least me, and I want it to be helpful for you all too. So there you go. There you have it. I'm coming clean with where I've been in the future of the Improved podcast. Yeah, so that's cool. Now, all right, so I was gone for like 2 weeks, right? Now, I should have done some stuff. So, of course, I missed the podcast last week because I was traveling for work, but does that mean I did nothing? No, of course not. I did something, but, not that much, but I did stuff. So let me explain. First of all, I'm very busy working on a secret project, which I can't talk to you about, which sucks. It's like not gratifying at all. It's just like, oh, Chase is working on a secret project that he can't share about. I don't care. Well, I agree. I also wouldn't care if I didn't know what project my friend was working on, but I know that he's working on something, so take solace in that, I guess. Yeah, but I do want to give you all like a little teaser, right? I am recording podcasts about this project. I just can't release them until the project is a little bit further along. Does that make sense? So stay tuned. One of these days you will find out what this secret project is all about, and you'll be like, oh, that's why Chase is acting like a crazy person for the next 3 months. And I'll be like, yeah, I told you that's what you would think on the podcast, on episode 34 of the Improved Podcast. Go back and listen to it, and you'll be like, wow, he really is a man of his word. And I'll be like, but yeah, beyond the secret project, I do have to say that I'm still working on writing and creative stuff because, it's in my blood. I literally can't give it up. It's just who I am. So if you are keeping track, I have this one project that I'm super excited about. I talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago when I shared it with Elijah, and he was like, oh, Chase, this is a really cool idea. So I'm like, even more motivated to start working on that. But last time I just sort of cracked the narrative engine or the plot of the story, so I feel like I'm ready to start outlining the story. But in order to do that, I really need to have more like mental creative bandwidth in order to get that flow state going. And I know I could get there if I like just sat down for a whole day and like started thinking about it and getting that, the gears greased and all that, but I just don't want to right now. It's like this thing deserves my full attention, and I just can't do it because it's not my top priority, which is kind of strange position to be in, where it's like my top priority isn't the thing I'm most excited about. But I guess that's kind of what growing up is, right? Hey, dang, that's kind of deep. Anyways, so yeah, that's the update on that. I do want to touch base on sort of the writers group that I'm a part of. First of all, I just have to say I love it. It's like the best thing ever. It's just this community of creatives who are taking themselves seriously, that are like working hard at, being writers, and it's sick, man. I love being a part of writers groups. I've never been a part of one before, other than like my one in college was a writing group. I mean, it was a creative writing club, and I was the president of it, so that counts. But haven't been a part of one in like 4 or 5 years now, so super excited to be back with one, and it's awesome. But the thing that's really unique and one of the best benefits and perks of this group is that the founders of the group, twice a year, they will provide members of the group an opportunity to submit your work for the review, with the intent of, providing feedback and reviewing it, or maybe even like giving an opportunity to collaborate in some form or fashion. I don't really know all the details. So that's cool. I know that none of my scripts are really ready to be produced or introduced to anyone like important. I don't think they're strong enough or marketable enough for that. But I do think that they're good enough to at least get me in front of people who can connect me with a manager to help shape or guide my writing career, if that makes sense. Like, the scripts that I've written, one is like $1 million feature that could be produced for $1 million. Another one is like a $70 million feature or $100 million feature that really couldn't be produced unless I establish myself as like a proven storyteller. So this sort of feels like an in-between step. Opportunity for me to get my script in front of those types of people. And, with being an unrepped writer, I could maybe use this as an opportunity to get representation in some form. Like, I couldn't use it as an opportunity to like sell my script because of course we're in the middle of a writer's strike, but I think I could use it as an opportunity to get repped by a reputable, manager who could help shape my career. So I'm really excited about that. So anyways, I've said all of this just to say that I'm gonna dust off Touch because I do think that's my strongest script that is most well polished and sort of shows people what I can do. So I think, people could read it and be like, hey, I couldn't produce this, but I do want to work with this person and invest my time in them as a writer and, that whole thing. So that's sort of what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to dust off the script and maybe add some of the changes that my, beautiful beta readers have read and provided feedback on, and, just make those small little changes to sort of get rid of those glaring errors so that I can, push it to those people who are going to want to read, a more polished script and something that I know I can do. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I am excited about that. In terms of timelines, let me think about it. So got to make these quick changes to the script to make it worth submitting, right? But the submission period started the 20th of August. So if you're keeping track, that was yesterday. If you're listening to this on Monday, that was yesterday. So submission is open, and it ends the 3rd of September. So I pretty much have like a week, if I'm doing my math right, a week or two. Gosh, maybe I should find that out. Yeah, I think it's like 2 weeks. Okay, 2 weeks. That's cool. That gives me more time. So it gives me 2 weeks to sort of polish up this script. Gosh, that's actually awesome. I thought it was 1 week. Whew. That's why I'm not a math guy, right? I'm just I'm a screenwriter. Anyways, so yeah, I have 2 weeks to make these changes, which I think are going to be pretty easy to implement. Like the story's good, the characters are good. I just need to make add a little bit of that finesse that I always talk about. Get some of the sprinkles, that professionalism on there. So I'm going to take the time these next 2 weeks to do that. So putting down whatever, the other script that I'm most excited about, and going to polish this up because I think this is an opportunity to advance me in my career. So yeah, there you go. I do also want to give you another update on the screenwriting group that I'm a part of. And I don't even know why. I think I've said this before, but I want to say it again just to cement it in my head that this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm committing to. I'm so busy with these secret projects and updating Touch and submitting to this thing. All of this stuff is taking up all of my time. And keep in mind, I work. I have a 40-hour a week job that takes up, 40 hours of my week. And addition to that is what is it? I work out, I run, I go grocery shopping, I cook and clean in the house, I maintain a household. All these things take up time in my life, and I only have 24 hours in a day, right? 7 days a week. So I gotta optimize my time. It's critical that I do that. If I don't do that, I'll fall apart, and I can't. So I really want to paint the picture of just how busy I am, so that when I fail at these things, it's more understandable. Gosh, am I just making excuses for myself? I'm the only person who has, a yard to mow, which I don't even have a yard to mow because my HOA is sweet. But it's I'm busy and I want, God, I'm just complaining now. This is getting lame. Anyways, no more complaining, Chase. I just want to cement the idea that with this creative writing club, I want to be an active participant in it. And I think the only way I can the only amount of time that I have that I can commit to is participating in one workshop a week and maybe participating in the industry talks. But even those are hard to commit to because they're right in the middle of my day, and it just shakes up my whole routine. So I really want to be a part of this workshop writing group, but I think the only thing I can do really realistically and sustainably is participate in one workshop per week. So I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try and stick to that. I missed the last 2 weeks because I was traveling and then I was doing work stuff this past week. So I've missed a couple, and I'm really upset with myself that I've missed those, but I got to be understanding. I can't be too hard on myself or else I'll just wallow in defeat, which not doing. I am not wallowing in defeat. I am not complaining, even though I spent the last 2 minutes complaining. But no, I'm not. I love my life. I'm super stoked on life right now. Super stoked on life. Can't even explain how stoked on life I am. I'm just a busy boy. But I'd rather be busy than bored, right? Like, being bored is way worse than being busy. Being busy is fun. You get to, like, do a bunch of stuff, and then, like, at the end of the day, you can sit there in bed and, like, relax or have a panic attack about, like, how much stuff you just did or how much stuff you have to do tomorrow. It's like, whew, I live for that stuff. It's like adrenaline. Anyways, was that it? Was that everything I wanted to talk about? Oh, that's right. Oh man, I forgot to mention this. So I last week, or a couple weeks ago, I talked about reading The Creative Act by Mr. Rick Rubin, which was fantastic. Great read. If you haven't picked it up yet, off of my recommendation, just do it. Just read it or listen to it on Audible. It is sick. Love the book. I think I'm going to start maybe listening to it like once a quarter just to vibe out, set the mood for the quarter, you know? If you're a writer or a storyteller, it's just great. But yeah, even if you're just a creative doing whatever you want to do, man, it's a great thing to get you in the mood. But so I finished that book and I wanted to pick up another book because I'm like, I'm on a book reading kick right now, or audio book listening kick, whatever. So I started listening to this new book and I wanted to set the stage. So bear with me for a few seconds as I set the stage. So if you're a storyteller or a writer, you've probably heard of the hero's journey, which is kind of like a narrative structure device that a lot of myths and modern stories follow, kind of by accident. I don't want to say by accident, but it's almost like it's a rule of nature that like stories follow this structure, this like traditional storytelling structure, I guess. So the hero's journey, that's kind of like what it is. It's present in myths and mythology and stuff like that. So I'm setting the stage, bear in mind. So this is the hero's journey typically. And like, I could be getting all this stuff wrong. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but this is how I understand it. So the hero starts off in the known world, and then they get this call to adventure. That's sort of like, you know, the first 5 to 15 pages or whatever. Then they reject that call to adventure. Then they enter into the unknown. They like answer the call, right? First they reject it, then they get another call and they answer that call. It's like they got to do 2 rings. It's kind of like if you're on D&D, do not disturb. You got to make 2 calls for it to get through. It's an analogy. So anyways, you go through, once you answer the call, you go through with a supernatural aid, you got your threshold, and that's the beginning of the transformation. So you leave the known world and you enter into the unknown. And that's when you meet your helper and your mentor, and you go through all of these challenges and temptations. And that's sort of like the beginning of the second act, is all of the challenging, the temptations, and then eventually you reach like the abyss, the death and rebirth situation where all of that sort of takes place, and your protagonist, the hero, is at their weakest point. They're so sad, they've been defeated, and they have to transcend themselves into this rebirth. So their old self has to die, and then they have to go through that, you know, rebirth or whatever. And so then they have this transformation, they go through the atonement, and then eventually they receive the gift of the goddess, and then they return back to the known world. And that's sort of when the third act begins, right? So yeah, that's sort of the hero's journey in like a really big picture. So I'm generally like familiar with that concept, right? Like I understand, whatever, the hero's journey, it's there. But I wanted to become like more familiar with like the source material of that. So I started reading the book that sort of, I guess, popularized this concept, which is John Campbell's The Hero's Journey. John Campbell's A Hero with 1,000 Faces. And I can't really explain this book better than the dust cover cans, so I'm just going to pull that up. Let me pull it up. Give me 2 seconds. I had it loaded, and then, of course, Audible reset my screen. So let me read this for you. The dust cover is: since its release in 1949, A Hero with 1,000 Faces has influenced millions of readers by combining the insights of modern psychology with Joseph Campbell's revolutionary understanding of comparative mythology. In this book, Campbell outlines the hero's journey, a universal motif of adventure and transformation that runs through virtually all of the world's mythic traditions. He also explores cosmogonic cycle, the mythic pattern of world creation and destruction. A revelation today as when it was first published. As relevant today as when it was first published, The Hero with a Thousand Faces continues to find new audience in fields ranging from religion, anthropology, to literature and film studies. The book has also profoundly influences creative artists, including authors, songwriters, game designers, and filmmakers, and continues to inspire all those interested in the inherent human need to tell stories. So, first of all, I have to say, his name is Joseph Campbell. I'm not sure if I said that. I might have said John Campbell, and I think that guy did Soup. I don't really know. But yeah, whatever. I'm not getting my PhD right now. I'm just trying to talk about stuff that I'm learning about. Anyway, so yeah, I've started reading this book on Audible or listening to it, and it's sick. It's like really, really cool. Hopefully that dust cover gives you like an idea of an insight as to why I would want to read this. It gives you, like the roots of humanity, of like why it's in our blood and our DNA to tell stories. And I think that's something that's very true to me, is like I'm just a storyteller. Like I might not be the biggest movie fan, I might not be the biggest fan of like pop literature or anything like that, but I love telling stories, and I want to be able to tell a good story because it's just in my blood. I can't give it up. So I decided to go to the source material, which this isn't even the source material, right? It's a book report on the source material. So whatever. Maybe I'll go back and read all these myths that this guy keeps referencing. But yeah, so I'm reading it. Let me sort of give you my interpretation of what like my takeaway has been so far. I guess I'm about halfway through, which is kind of crazy. Because I feel like I haven't absorbed any of it. A lot of it like goes way over my head. There's a lot of psychology involved with, Freud and Carl Jung, and all these people are just kind of sprinkled throughout, like talking about, the serpent mother and like weird folks in myth, lore, and death and transformation, and the mother and the father, and oh gosh, it's just like a lot, and it goes way over my head, and I'm just like, I don't understand any of this. So I wish I was a smarter person so I could understand it. But I think once I'm finished reading it, I'm gonna go and like create a cheat sheet so that I can better understand and relate these like high level psychology terms into like actionable talking points for, a knuckle dragger like me who can maybe try and synthesize and implement it into my storytelling journey. That's like my plan right now. But who knows if that'll work? I have no idea. I'm trying to figure it out. But yeah, I'm enjoying reading it at the very least. It's like a lot of these things, right? It's like in your blood. So they're talking about things that you know to be true, but you can't like express it in words. And that's something I really like fall back on, right? It's like, oh yeah, I know this to be true, but I can't explain why it's true. I can't explain why it's important, but this is the truth. And so that's what I'm really like valuing from this. So I'm trying to come up with a way where I can like make it more valuable, or more like it is valuable just listening to it, but I want to make it even have a bigger impact in my writing life, I guess. So I need to figure out how to do that. I think I'm going to have to, open up Wikipedia and have it explain it to me in layman's terms, and then create a cheat sheet. Maybe I'll put that up on like my website or something like that for people to use if they'll find that useful. I don't know, man. I guess most writers are probably smarter than me, so like they understand what this is talking about, and I'm just like, I have no idea, but I just want to tell stories, bro. Anyways, yeah. So that's what I've been up to. Next week, what do I want to do? I kind of already explained it, but I'll go over it again. What am I going to do next week? Next week, I want to get my secret project, keep working on that, keep cracking away. I'm going to keep mentioning it just so you guys know I am working on something. But in addition to that, I'm also going to be working on touch, going to be sprinkling some of that feedback, pixie dust onto my new script, or new version, new draft of the script. So that'll be a good time. And then I think that's about it. I guess I'll be back next week with another solo episode. Worst case, I'll be back with back in 2 weeks with a solo episode. But I also wanted to mention stuff about Dawn. So yeah, I mentioned last week that it was released. Gosh, it is just so funny. Like, working on this project has been just such a trip, and it is technically released right now. I think it's on public, so you could find it if you searched for it. But I'm going to ask you to not do that, because I spoke with Elijah and we decided to do, there's some like changes I want to make to the film, things I think would make it a lot better, that he just can't see, because I think he's just too close to the film to understand like why this doesn't work. So I'm going to make some changes to it. He's already said like, yo, Chase, go for it, man. It's all yours. So as soon as I get the raw footage, I'm going to kind of create my own writer's cut, and then I'm going to re-release the film in December, and that'll be sort of the official release of Dawn from under the Classic Studios banner, which I am so excited about. It's going to be so sick to just like have a film produced under Classic Studios. I'm going to try and do like one a year. Maybe 3 next year. I don't know. I just want to do one a year. I think that would be cool, as like a baseline goal, and then maybe I'll do more than that as I improve and get more time on my hands. But we'll see. So yeah, that's the status on Dawn. I'm glad I remembered to make an update on that. But yeah, that's the status on Dawn. Hold tight. December 2023 release date. I swear you guys will be able to watch it then. And, oh, by the way, I've seen it now. I've seen it in its entirety, and it's sick. Elijah did a fantastic job. It is so cool. There's, like, these, I mentioned changes that I want to make that he doesn't think are necessary, but, like, it's just tiny little tweaks, because he did such a great job with the entire story and the pacing and all of it. It's just, like, incredible that he was able to turn the script into something, like, that looks great, that feels good. And this is such a big story. Like, final runtime was like 29 minutes, almost 29 minutes for a student film. That's crazy. That's such a long student film. Very high concept, very like blockbuster-esque, and it's crazy. Like, if we had a budget for this, I think it could have turned out like amazing. And if I gave it a second pass at the script, I think it could have been even better. So seriously, kudos to him. I cannot believe he was able to pull it off. It's fantastic. I hope this is getting you all excited for next week, or I mean for the end of the year. Not next week, but for the end of the year. It's gonna be amazing to share with you all. The Classic Studios presents Dawn, the writer's cut, or whatever. I don't know how it's gonna be framed, but we'll see. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I do want to give a shout out to Green Bean for all of our musical intros and outros. He is the man. He actually told me that he started picking up The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. He's actually the one who told me about it first, and then I read it, and then he was like, oh, dude, I haven't even read it yet. And I was like, dude, it's great. Great recommendation. You should read this book you told me to read. So yeah, shout out to Green Bean for the music, and I want to shout out to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for leaving a 5-star review. Thank you for sharing. Oh my gosh, it seriously means so much to me. And yeah, if you guys want to go to classicstudios.com, that is CLSCstudios.com, and sign up for the Classic Studios newsletter. That's going to be launching in October. And if you want to send me an email at theimprovedpodcast@gmail.com, I would love to hear from you. I think that is about everything from me. Classic Studios is on Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow me or it at clscstudios.com. Actually, it's just at CLSC Studios. Go for it. Yeah, I think that's about everything. Thank you all for listening. I am so happy to have talked to you for this Monday morning. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Improve Podcast. Goodbye.